Just going back to when you were a child and you were healing, and clearly you were healing with the great love in your heart. What was your earliest experience of finding that love in your heart? I mean, when did you become aware that you had a great love? Would you say that it was just there when you were born and it was never any different from your earliest conceivable memory, or did you have a very loving environment, family life, or how did it come to you? Was it?
No, I had not a very loving environment. I had an extraordinary loving father, but I did have a mother that was disturbed and slightly on the violent side. So I had both poles of what it is to be loved and also not to be loved. But if there is an event that was defining for me, was that near where I grew up, as very small, even before I turned 9, there was a leper camp in a hospital, confined to a left of a hospital building in the city. And I remember that was the forbidden place to visit. And I could not understand how we as children, or anybody else for that matter, had to be forbidden to go close to these people because they had some sort of disease. And so being a little bit of a rebel even then, and totally different and following my heart, I said, those are not people that we can ignore. This is not people that we must keep in this wire camp as if they were animals. So I would go and visit them. And I was so touched by their state, just to receive a visitor like me, a little child, that moved my heart beyond, words cannot explain that. But I remember staying with them sometimes for hours and telling them, just telling you I want to cry, because I used to play a little bit the clown, to make them laugh. That was my objective, is to make them laugh. It was to bring them some joy. And from there I used to go and dive into the ocean, because I used to touch them, And somebody always used to say you can catch the disease and end up like them, without fingers, without noses, without this, without that. So I used to stay with hours, and then for hours I used to swim in the sea and ask the ocean to protect me from contamination, because I could not think for a moment that I would not visit them for as long as they were there, and I did.
Oh, lovely, beautiful. So when you found you had a healing ability, you were describing how people would put their hands into a certain place because they just knew that you had healing in you. You weren't using what you might call a recognized technique, were you? You were just...
Not at all.
I mean, how did it work then? How was your healing?
If they hold my hand and ask me to place my hand over their heart, I would place my little hand over their heart until they release my hand. I was just so trusting that they needed my hand, that I left my hand there for as long as they felt that my hand was good for them. And of course I evolved from that to receiving conscious transmissions and conscious guidance. So today I do what is called spiritual healing or hands-on healing, and it's always through guidance. I just put my hands on the part of the patient that is almost craving for that energy. And I have what you call a very high sensory level of temperature. So if I touch somebody, the energy is so intense coming out of my body or reflecting back of the body of the patient, that it becomes easy now that I'm a grown-up, so to speak, healer, to know exactly where to leave my hands and how long. But it is still basically the same. For me, nothing has changed. It's still an act of love. It's almost as if that part of the patient's biology is needing love. And love is what flows through my hands, because I have learned to see my hands as absolute extensions of my heart. My hands do what my heart tells them to do. So, and that is my understanding at this mature age of mine of what healing is. It's just truly, truly an act of love.
Mm.